What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. Bye, singing dog. Bye, goal.
I pronounce you.
Bye, wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hey, kids. Good afternoon. It's Friday. It is Friday, right? I had to think a minute. I don't know why I'm thinking it's Thursday. Well, in any case, I believe it's Friday. So good afternoon to everybody. I want to say a huge, big, real quick rendition here before I start off with our local talent. And when I say local talent, I'm not minimizing by any stretch of the imagination. Josh Becker is a staple in this city, and hopefully by the time we get done with our interview, you will come to learn to appreciate him and to want to support each and all of the endeavors he's involved in. I just want to take a real quick second and do a shout-out real quickly, too. I just literally found out before I came on air that a very dear friend of mine in New York City just lost his father. So, Vanessa, I'm going to be sending you a message so you can listen into this radio show, but from me to you, because I'm not going to get a chance to talk to you for a while. I just want you to know that I love you very much and that I'm thinking of you, and my heart is hurting for you, and I will try to be there. Well, I'll try to call. I'll try to do something as soon as I can. And I just want you to remember one thing. Your father was proud of you, of who you were and who you are now becoming. And you need to stay true to yourself and remember that. And I love you very much. Okay, I just wanted to get that off my plate. And I also wanted to send a special shout-out to all the rest of my friends, all 100 of them that have been supportive during my time of so-called silence right now. It's been very challenging, and you all know that. And I just want you to know how much I love you and I appreciate you. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can say on that one. Okay, so without further ado, let's get Josh Becker on the line because I'm so excited to talk to him, and let's find out all sorts of good stuff about him. Hey, Josh Becker.
Hey, CM, how you doing?
Hey, you're here. You're actually here in live and in person and on my show. I'm so excited. I'm nervous. I'm very, very nervous.
All right, you and me both.
Oh, you have nothing to be nervous about, actually. I've been going behind your back and talking about you to other people, and they've been talking to me about you. So I've heard some things about Josh Becker.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Let me just tell our listening audience the first thing, and this is just, if you've never seen Josh Becker before, even if you go on Facebook and you look at his pictures, I'm going to tell you right now, you don't really get the full effect of this, because Chris Crow said this last night. I was out at a gig, and I said, yeah, talk to me about Josh Becker. I said, I'm going to have him on the show today. And da-da-da-da-da. Here's what he says. Dude, do you ever look at him when he stands up? He is so not intimidating until the man stands up. And I'm not going to lie to you people. You are like 7'4" tall. I mean, literally, you are the most towering musician in the city. I don't know if you're aware of that. But you scare people. Not in a bad way, but it's kind of like you're very overpowering. Did you know that?
Well, I know I'm taller than most people, yeah. But, oh, well.
It's
It is
a little
it is.
intimidating. Right, because it's so funny because I'm like, oh, my God, you see this guy and he's just so big and tall, and I'm just like, oh, my God, I'm afraid to kind of walk up and approach him. You're a very likable fellow, but it's your appearance. And we were just thinking to ourselves, oh, my God, this guy is so tall and huge and overpowering. So that's number one you should know about him, even though you can't see him, he's very tall. Second of all, I've geared up a whole bunch of different questions about all different parts of your life. I kind of wanted to start off in the beginning. You know, typically that's what I like to do. To those of you that are listening and that don't know, I know that you originate from Madison. I also know that you went to Miami Palmetto, is it, high school? Now that's located in Miami, Florida, correct?
Right. I went to high school in Florida. Before that, I moved around a lot. I was actually born in New York. I lived in Kentucky and Georgia, Ohio, Wisconsin a little bit, and then Florida. And it's, you know, the kind of life, I guess, a lot of times people who are in military families have. But I was not in a military family. My dad is a music professor, and he kept taking jobs at different universities every couple of years. So he moved around a lot.
Okay.
Right now, he's still teaching. He's down at Texas Tech.
Oh, my gosh.
But, and so then after I graduated high school in Florida, I moved to Madison and lived there for over 20 years. And now I'm in Menominee Falls, and I go back and forth to Madison all the time for gigs, and my kids still live over in that area. So I've been a Wisconsin person since 1985.
Okay. Now, here was my question. That was one of the things I was thinking about. Okay, so you went to high school in Miami, and I thought to myself, all right, well, you've brought up the first thing I wanted to mention, which was obviously you come from a somewhat musical background, as you're mentioning your father here. So was it almost inferred or assumed because of that you would be venturing off into a career in music, or was he more discouraging? Because some parents are like, no, get a real job. Not that it's not a real job as a musician, but sometimes it doesn't always pan out to be something that you can live off of or have a lifetime career.
Definitely the former, not the latter. It was a very, very musical family, and I have two brothers, and all of us were forced to take violin lessons when we were 3 years old. My mother is a violin teacher, so we had a built-in violin teacher who taught us every day, and it was a kind of very rigorous. The way I like to put it is, my mother is a very good violin teacher, and everything that comes along with that. And if you get a lesson from her once a week, you're lucky to have that education. Well, we got a lesson every day, and there was no time limit. It wasn't just 30 minutes. It was be an hour, 2 hours. And it got to be a little overbearing. So it was, so we didn't like it. And she did the same for my kids. She lived next door to me when my kids were real small, and she gave them lessons. And so we can complain about it all we want, but that is the primary reason that me and my brothers and both of my sons turned out to be such good musicians, is that background. So it was definitely right there in the house is where it came from.
Okay. Now, interestingly, and correct me if I'm mistaken, because I have seen you play on different instruments and in different places, but I have yet to see you actually play the violin out. So do you utilize that skill now?
No, I pick up a violin once in a while, every few years, and I just kind of will take a few minutes to refamiliarize myself with it. But no, I could not claim to be a violinist.
Ah, okay. Nor probably want to, it sounds like. It sounds like you're kind of hinging on the fence of, yes, it was nice, but.
Well, no. And in fact, and one of my sons has gone back to violin after having quit the lessons for a while. But no, it doesn't still linger as a negative thing. Violin is a difficult instrument to play, and when I pick it up, I understand where the notes are and where the fingers go. But to get good at it, I would require a lot of work that most of the time I'm just not willing to put in right now.
Ah, I understand. I get it. That's perfectly fine. Now, I want to go back to the academic thing a little bit here. Now, obviously, I've hosted a variety of different musicians, so on which side of the fence I was curious to see where you landed as far as some are self-taught musicians and didn't do a whole extensively large amount of education relative to music. Because I don't know your background, maybe you can let everybody know, did you have all sorts of actual formal training, or is this something you kind of taught yourself to do over the years?
For me, it was very much right down the middle. It was, I get the best of both worlds. Not only did I get the violin instruction from my mother, but because of my parents, I was often around other very good musicians, and I would learn things from them. And I took various lessons on different instruments over time, but usually not for more than a few weeks at a time. And I went to Brevard Music Center. I took music theory classes in college. But the big driving force were the more casual, self-taught musicians who I was friends with in high school, and we'd sit around and jam on guitars and figure out how to play Beatles songs and Rush songs and Van Halen songs. And that's where most of the motivation came from. So, like I said, I really think of it as the best of both worlds. I was motivated like a self-taught person, but I had access to a lot of more formal educational resources that just contributed to it. So.
Okay, I see what you mean. Now, you yourself being a father at this point in time, would you be more inclined then to kind of lessons, or do you want them just to learn, well, basically from you? Because let's face it, I mean, you're a multi-talent, so might it behoove them just to kind of shadow you, if you will?
Well, I don't know if shadowing is the right word, but my kids have definitely followed a very similar path to what I have. They got some of the formal training from my mother and from me and from my father and some family friends and the usual things. And then they go off on their own. And, the way it is when you're a parent and you realize you're reliving a scene with your kids that you lived 30 years earlier with your parents. And I've had that happen where my older son is learning how to play styles of music and artists that I'm not really familiar with. He's learning off of YouTube, but and I see him demonstrate these things, and I'm like, wow, how did you learn how to do that? I remember my dad telling me that back 30 years ago, when I was learning, some Kansas. I was actually transcribing Kansas keyboard parts on staff paper, and he was like, oh, where'd you learn how to do that? And where the somewhat formal / informal education I was getting kind of takes on a life of its own, and my kids are definitely doing that too, and I think it's awesome.
Definitely.
I just kind of step aside and let it go, and what I've seen, it's really wonderful.
Absolutely. And obviously, one of the highest compliments, I think, is, when you can pass on a gift or a quality that you have onto one of your children and kind of watch it flourish through them, it's absolutely an amazing moment. I've had that myself, so I know what you're talking about as far as that goes. Again, from the schooling standpoint, I wanted to mention to individuals, because we want to cover all different layers of you. I understand, of course, that you serve as an instructor for Wonder Sound Music. In fact, you were just mentioning the other day that you were looking for additional students, I believe, on Tuesdays. So tell folks a little bit about how you got involved with doing instruction there, how long you've been doing it, of course, what you're teaching, and moreover, maybe explain to us what's the difference, because I did this myself, between going to a formal place such as like a facility, Wonder Sound Music, versus just hiring someone. What's the benefit to utilizing something like this program when it comes to bringing students in?
I'm not sure there's really a difference between going to a music store that offers lessons and hiring somebody to come to your house, or if that's what you're talking about. That's pretty much the same thing. It's not like, I think maybe the bigger difference is between those types of lessons and going to an actual conservatory of music or college where there's a bigger program at work. That's not what I'm doing. I'm giving lessons, the typical 30-minute lessons once a week, and I just happen to be doing it at Wonder Sound Music now because it's just a few blocks from my house, and I'm friends with the guy who runs it. It's a really great place. And actually tied into what we were talking about before, as a guitar teacher and as a keyboard teacher, there are, let's put it this way, violin teachers such as my mother are notorious for being real strict, very specific technique. The old, she never did this, but the old, ruler on the knuckles if you do something wrong kind of attitude. And piano teachers can be that way too. And then you have guitar teachers and to some lesser extent drum teachers have the opposite reputation. Oh, there's so many different ways you can play guitar and however you want, and they're not real strict about things. And I always felt like, again, I try to get the best of both worlds and teach with some freedom and free spirit, but with a little more attention to detail than I think a lot of guitar teachers do. And so, again, just trying to get the best of both worlds. And piano, same way. It's like, I can teach somebody the old-fashioned classical way, but there's a lot of people who are interested in the more of the, you mentioned Chris Crow. I think of all these guys who I've met doing pianos where you're basically playing any song that anybody requests by referring to chord charts and improvising off of that. And that's a skill that's fun to do and fun to teach. And again, kind of combines the more formal with the more informal approach to the instrument.
I gotcha. Now, this is an interesting question because obviously, of course, because you teach, you might be more versed to answer this per se than the average person. I, as a parent, of course, have taken my child in for lessons and other times. And us as parents, we always want to believe, oh, you know what, our child has a gift for this. They have a talent for it. I know they can sing. I know they can play this. So any good advice to us parents out here in terms of how do you embrace what you consider to be a talent? How do you recognize, basically, if there's a talent that you should be nurturing? Just because there are children doesn't necessarily mean that they should be or that they will be musically talented. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I'm not really sure what the best way to answer that is. One thing I discovered, I mean, this might sound cynical, but one thing I discovered when I started teaching lessons, which was about 15 years ago, I was really surprised at the diversity of musical ability. And what I mean was, before that, I used to assume that everybody had similar potential. If they just worked at it, they could realize the potential. And I realized when I started teaching that wasn't true. You know, in very general terms, I'm thinking, you know, only a certain percentage of people actually have the inborn talent to become really good. I just happened to be growing up surrounded by those people. So I thought everybody was like that. And then I started teaching, and I realized half the people I was teaching will never be very good, no matter how hard they work at it. Now, that's not to say they shouldn't take lessons. You can still have a lot of fun with it. But the potential for getting really good or having that gift, I guess, is more diverse than I had realized. And when you find somebody, I mean, this one of the most rewarding things about teaching is to be able to tell parents honestly, you know, your kid has really got it. Your kid has totally got the potential to become really great, and then to work with that. And I don't know if there's really much I could say beyond that.
No, I understand.
You know, and of course,
because, like I said, go ahead.
It's an inexact science because I can always be proven wrong. I mean, if I kind of write somebody off as not having much potential, and they turn around and prove that they could actually be good, that I'm not denying that will happen once in a while. But yeah, it is very exciting to see, especially since I realize how relatively rare it is that you know, every once in a while you get a student who's really got it.
Right, of course. You know, obviously I selfishly asked that question for a reason, because my 8-year-old son has just, he walks around constantly. He's singing all the time. Kids singing all the time. Okay, let's go to an open jam, you know, like in a restaurant or in someplace, because he's a small child, you know, or we went to see E-Rock the other day, and so he's like, you know, you can take a tambourine or you can do this. I swear that child will sing everywhere, but the minute you put him up publicly any place, wants nothing to do with it. Shy as all get out, won't do anything. And as a parent, it's why I guess I asked that, because you don't want to embarrass them into it, but you don't want to not embrace the fact that this could very well be an ongoing thing for him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just a tough call there, you know, because you don't want to let it go.
One of my sons who's got amazing musical ability is very reluctant to show it off in public. And I've come to accept that. I mean, I've brought him to open jams, and he's played with me a handful of times, but he never wants to do the same thing twice. And he just kind of got to a point where he's like, he doesn't really respect the bar scene, and it's like, why are we playing for a bunch of people sitting around drinking? I'd rather play at home, you know.
Sure. No, I understand completely. I do. So we'll just see. We'll wait and see. People playing music for people who are drinking is how I make a living, so I can't knock it. Yes, well, that's exactly right, definitely. Okay, I want to ask, of course, about, before we start getting into some of the other things, such as your band, what you do, et cetera, I am a firm belief, and this is just my firm belief, one of the things that makes a musician even better, besides having original talent, is having outside forces that have influence, meaning that if you have passion in your life across the board, you are passionate about music, you're passionate about everything else, life symmetry works very well. In your particular case, you have only been married for your lovely bride of 3 years or 4 years? I want to say 3 years.
Yeah, we've been married for just over 3 years. We've been living together for 6.
Oh, nice. Very, very nice. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about, or I wanted to talk a little bit about, obviously, of course, your wife, in terms of, obviously, I see she's very active and very vocal as far as not only participating and being at your gigs, et cetera, but speaking so very highly of your talent. So just talk to us a little bit about how your family and your wife influences you and makes you a better performer, a better person. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, musically speaking, I mean, yeah, it definitely helps to have passion in things that relate to things you might be singing about. I mean, you know, I do write music, but most of my career is based around playing cover songs, and I definitely latch on to certain cover songs with a passion that relates to me. And interestingly, because this ties to what we were just talking about, I've said many times, I'm a sucker for any sentimental song about parenthood. Songs that talk about having kids and the joy of raising and seeing a child develop. There's a batch of songs I like to do. They're not always the most popular songs, but when I'm feeling really indulgent, those are the songs I love to pull out. of course, love songs, anything that I could, apply to my relationship with my wife is a common theme for musicians to be passionate about. Let's see. I mean, in art in general, I mean, I'm one of these people who I'll cry really easily at a really sweet song, maybe accompanied with a video, more so than I will things in real life, So
okay.
I kind of look through the world with an artistic lens in that regard, in that if there's a certain poetic twist or things to life in ways that would make good art, that's what I get easily passionate about. So if that makes any sense.
Oh, no, I follow what you're trying to say, obviously, and that's not surprising because most artists, I think, kind of fall along, the same lines, whether it's a musician, any form of artistry. I've just noticed that. I've also noticed that there's some diversity amongst musicians versus, authors or filmmakers and things like that. We're all kind of a little strange in our own little way, and we all have our own unique little passions, the way we do things, all our certain little, good stuff as far as that goes. Now, when it comes to you and your art in and of itself, meaning, of course, music, if I were to ask you, what's the draw? Meaning, like, for some musicians, they'll say they do this completely and solely because they want to get a smile out of a person. Some people are looking for just the audience approval. Some people are just looking to play because, well, they just like to play and they don't really care. They want to be out. What draws you so intensely into wanting to perform and constantly and consistently in front of what's the big payback for you, I guess, besides obviously monetarily?
Playing music is definitely something I have always loved to do, and I've gotten to a point where I actually make a living doing it. And in the most general sense, when you make a living doing what you like to do, it's like you're not really working. So there's that aspect of it. But also, I think it's an interesting, bigger question, how selfish or selfless is being a musician? Because I've heard people say, musicians are great because they want to make people happy, and that's why they do it, and it's so selfless. And I don't really buy that. I think making people happy is definitely a positive, and it's something that I'm glad to do, and I'm glad that it's a part of the process. But, I don't deny that I crave the spotlight. I like to be, when I go to a concert and I see, people being applauded or even idolized for what they're doing, I can't deny, I like to put myself in that position if I can. So there's, I think music is great that way because you can do it for selfish reasons, but it doesn't mean it's a bad thing, and there's lots of non-selfish things that come out of it. So it's like a win-win situation.
Oh, definitely. I agree with you as far as that goes. That makes perfect sense. Thank you. Okay, so we want to start talking about some of the different things that you do as far as from a musical standpoint. So I wanted to mention to other people that may not know this, your backstory. I want to name just a couple of the different bands that you used to be in, of course, Jukebox Heroes, the Cheaters, and, of course, Madison has their version of the Toys, which I didn't realize before. So I have a...
Yeah, it was actually Toys. There was no the on it. It was just Toys. And they were popular from, 1988 to 1990, and that was the first professional band I was in that played every week. I think I was 23 at the time, and and they were pretty popular, the Bowling House, but they just had a little 3-year run, and I was part of that. So no relation to the Toys in Milwaukee now. Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. Well, my question to you, and obviously when we look back at some of the past history and some of the bands that you were with and such, I'm a firm believer, once again, that whatever you take from your past experiences contributes to the musician that I'm watching last week or the week before. So if you could tell me, what do these experiences contribute to you from a musical and a personal standpoint that have made you the Josh Becker you are today?
Well, going back to that first band, Toys, I remember vividly that first summer I was with them. I was skinny, mullet head kid who was, the youngest member of a band, just joined. And I remember the first time we played a festival show. It was actually a ski show in Madison, the ski jumping and the lake. And it took place on the spot where the convention center now is. This was before they built it. And I have a video of that. Behind us, you can see the mural that is under the tunnel now of the convention center. But anyway, it was the first time I ever played in a pop rock band in front of a crowd of more than 1,000 people. And I remember before the show being nervous about that. It's like, oh, I'm going to play in front of a lot of people. And I went up there determined, like, I'm not going to be too nervous to do this. I'm going to push through and do my job. And within the first couple songs, I was just absolutely, totally comfortable. It surprised me how comfortable I was. And I look back at that moment as the moment I realized this is where I belong. I want to be playing music in front of people, and no matter how big the crowd is, it'll always feel comfortable. It'll never scare me. And so that was one thing from that first band. Let's see. It's funny. I don't know if this really directs to your question, or maybe it does. At the beginning, I considered myself a guitar player. I played some piano on the side, but I always thought that piano and keyboards were kind of intimidating, oddly enough. And when I joined Toys, I was replacing a guy who played half the show on bass guitar and half the show on keyboards. And he was a very good singer, which I wasn't, but he was a good bass player, and he was a very mediocre keyboard player. So I was good enough to cover his keyboard parts, and I was certainly good enough to play his bass parts, and they reassigned some of the vocals to some of the other guys, and that's how I joined the band. So then, then a couple years later, that band's breaking up, and I hear there's an opening for the Cheaters, which was a band that was well known in Madison because they had an album out, they got some radio play, and they had actually gone on Star Search on TV, and they won 1 week, and then they lost the next year on Star Search for 2 weeks. Wow. So they had some visibility, and they needed a keyboard player who played a little bit of the rhythm guitar. The person I'd be replacing did that. And I practiced, and I went in and I auditioned, and I got the gig. And it was obvious to me that 2 years earlier I would not have been a good enough keyboard player for that job, but I grew into the job with Toys, and my keyboard playing improved. So then flash forward another couple of years. The Cheaters are breaking up, and Jukebox Heroes needs a keyboard player. Now, Jukebox Heroes, if you know them at all, they were legendary in the early 90s for doing these 70s covers. They did Styx and Boston and Deep Purple and Queen and some really good keyboard stuff. And so, again, I'm like, oh, that would be a great gig. And I practiced, and I went, and I auditioned, and I got that gig. And it was obvious that, back at the time that I joined the Cheaters, I would not have been good enough keyboard player to join the Jukebox Heroes. So here I am in 1994, and I'm playing keyboards with a really good keyboard band, Jukebox Heroes. And so the way I've often explained it is I was a guitar player who became a keyboard player simply because that's where the jobs were.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I lost you there. Hello?
Hello? Do you hear me?
Hi.
Hello?
That scared me for a minute. All of a sudden there was like nothing there, and I'm like, oh, my God, did I lose you? Okay, you're here. I'm sorry. Whew, all right, so where were we at? Or where were you at? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just explaining how the first three big cover bands I was in became more and more of a keyboard-oriented thing. So I became a keyboard player mainly because that's where the jobs were.
Right. Okay. Now, my question is this, because I have seen you on a keyboard, and I have, of course, seen you on guitar before and such. Do you have a preferred instrument that you play in general? Something like if you had to decide tomorrow, it's one or nothing, what would you pick and why?
Well, people ask me actually that a lot. Which do I prefer playing? And I usually say, well, the grass is always greener on the other side. If I'm playing one a lot, I'll kind of want to play the other. But if you're saying I had to pick one for the rest of my life, I think I would probably pick piano just because, first of all, it's more acceptable to play it sitting down. And it's, I don't know, it's just the kind of lounge act that I've gotten used to doing on the piano seems more versatile and more, there's just more potential for I don't know, just creative spins off of things and crowd interaction. I mean, it's really, I mean, that's only if I have to choose, because really I don't see that much of a difference between the two since you put a gun to my head.
Yes, and I forced you, and I said, damn it, answer that question. To those of you who are listening that don't know, of course, one of the things that Josh does is, of course, dueling pianos, which he initiated at approximately about the last 2 years or so he's been doing it. So a question to that, because, again, I'm a novice. I'm pretty sure there's some people out there listening who might be a novice when it comes to instrument playing or music in general. So tell me, or tell us, I should say, every musician I've found seems to have some sort of, what's the word for it? How do you prepare, or I should say, how do you stay sharp as it relates to playing the piano so that each and every time when you're doing this regularly, you stay precise, you stay on target, you're able to do your job proficiently? Is it different than, playing a guitar, whereas, you could play, practice once a week and then go and play a couple gigs? You know what I'm saying?
I'm not sure I know what you're saying. The idea of musicians can play better if they've been practicing more is kind of a general rule of thumb, and I don't really see much of a difference between different instruments. Doing pianos is a much more improvisational setting, so that might be what you're getting at. If I'm doing a piano show that's not improvisational, then it's a lot like a guitar show where I have songs that I've worked on and play as best as I can. With the dueling piano show, the basis of it is requests. So you try to learn as many popular songs as you can, but a lot of what you're going to do is stuff that you're not really prepared to do, and that's why, the dueling pianos, people always have their iPads in front of them, and they'll be looking up lyrics and they'll be looking up chord charts. I don't really feel like I'm giving away too much there. It's not like magician secrets. I mean, it's pretty obvious what they're doing, but But and there's no problem in that. I mean, every time I do a dueling piano show, there'll be a handful of songs that it's like, oh yeah, I've heard that song, but I've never played it. I'll look it up, and really that's why it's dueling. I guess that's the trick behind it. Is while one person is playing, the other guy's looking up the next song. Because but anyway, and so it's like, oh, I get the lyrics in front of me, I see what the chords are, and riff off of that based on having heard the song before, being familiar with it. And that can be, it's a challenge, but it's a very fun challenge. And when it goes well, which it usually does, it's pretty satisfying because you made the person who requested the song happy, and you're kind of working your own musical muscles, and you're sometimes singing a song you've never sung before. You go, I've always liked this song. I'm glad that somebody requested it, so I had to sing it. So there's a certain sharpness that you need for that. That's a little different than others, but it's and I found last year I played dueling piano shows a lot more often, and I could feel myself getting better at it every time I did it. Sometimes at home I would simulate a show where I would take random requests. Sometimes I would take the request sheets that were left at a previous gig and stick them in my pocket and sit at home and pretend that these are requests coming up. But nothing really replaces the actual live experience of doing that for actually getting better at it.
I gotcha. I understand completely. Now, on the other side of the fence versus, obviously dueling pianos is by request, and not dissimilar, of course, to like an open mic scenario, because I know that you host open mics on a regular basis. You've been doing that for the last 4 years. And so explain to people, because I think I've been to enough open jams or open mics to be able to see, is it more beneficial for the average person to come to an open mic and to be able to stand up there and go up there, or is it the best combination when you've got both musicians as well as your crowd coming up, and it's the combination of the two that makes the open mic successful?
Well, it's definitely, if you combine as many different types of people, that's obviously the best. I mean, I've been to some open jams. I've hosted some, but I've been to others where there's so many professional musicians there, and they're so good. I can understand where to an average person it might be intimidating.
Right.
I mean, I've seen where the stage is filled. You got Phil Norby and Mitch Cooper and just on and on with these really awesome musicians where it could be intimidating. Hopefully, most open mics aren't that intimidating. My favorite open mic stories have to do with, there's a couple of people I could name who came out to my open mic just kind of as a curiosity, and they're like, oh, yeah, I play some guitar, and they dust off their guitar, and they practice a song at home, and they bring in and they come and sing it at my open mic. And they're like, this is cool, and so they make it a regular thing. They come to a lot of these, and they learn more songs, and they get more into it, and they practice more. And now, a year later, 2 years later, they're actually playing professional gigs. I love that. That's I like, and they give me partial credit for making that happen. And one guy in particular, he's in his 40s, and he never played a professional gig. And the first time he played a professional gig was like a direct result of being a regular at my open mic. And he was given his check at the end of the night, and he's like, you know, he's in his 40s. He's like, this is the first time I've ever been paid to play music, and it was such a beautiful moment, you know.
Oh my God! Look at that. See. That's nice to see, because a lot of times, you know, that doesn't always happen, especially because this industry that you guys are in, it's very difficult. I know in Milwaukee here, that's one thing I wanted to have you address, because, of course, you have Cherry Pie, which is one. On the other side of the fence, the Josh Becker Band. Then on the other side of the fence, you're doing the solo acoustical, plus you've got this open mic and dueling pianos. So talk a little bit about, because that's quite an extensive musical career. Michael Sean's of the world. There are a bunch of other musicians in town that I can name that are in multi-projects. So my question to you is, do you feel nowadays it's almost a necessity to be multi-project oriented and implemented all of these projects at the same time just to be able to succeed in this business, since, of course, most of the venues are getting away from live music, it seems?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, there's fewer opportunities. I mean, you probably remember the days when venues would have live music 3, 4, 5, sometimes even 7 nights a week, and you don't see that anymore. I think a lot depends on your definition of the word success. Now, for me, being able to make a vast majority of my income from music and not have to have a day job full time, to me, that's one measure of success. Now, to somebody else, that might have nothing to do with their idea of success. So, for me, yeah, I do lots of different things, because Cherry Pie is obviously my main thing that's very reliable for me. But Cherry Pie, by consensus, only plays about 50 shows a year. Back when I was in the Cheaters and Jukebox Heroes, they did at least double that many and kept me busier.
Wow.
So Cherry Pie is like, you know, that's my rock. But I still have a lot of open nights that I like to fill with as many other musical endeavors as I can. It's fun, and some are more lucrative than others, but and some are more rewarding than others. But the whole idea is to fill the schedule as much as I can, so that I can continue doing, like I said before, making a living doing what I love to do, and not having to drag myself out of bed Monday through Friday. You know, it's a dream come true to be able to play 3 nights a week music and not have to have that day job.
Oh, I totally understand. I know what you mean. I'm self-employed myself, and it's a nice luxury to be able to plan your time accordingly based on doing something that you love to do, that's your passion. I mean, who doesn't want to do that, obviously, and get paid for it, certainly. So now let's talk about, which is shocking, but believe it or not, there are some people listening in who have never even heard about Cherry Pie or what they do or what kind of music it is. So I'd like you to give us just a short summation of what Cherry Pie is, and more often, God, let me rephrase this. Sorry, I'm having a hard time today. Talk to us about the band. Talk to us about how it was initiated and founded. And for future reference, do you anticipate the band extending out? Because I've watched the progression of the band, Cherry Pie, that is, over time, and I haven't seen you a whole lot, but I get a sense of things that it looked like you were going to build on to that band, but maybe I'm mistaken. So I'll let you talk about it. It's your band. It's your thing.
All right. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by extend out or build on, but I can tell you about
more bandmates, etc. Because there are just some bands in the city that I've been looking at, and I thought to myself, I wonder if they'd add on an additional player, meaning, or an additional vocalist, etc.
Yeah, well, we've never done that. I mean, I guess I'll start with that part of the question, which is, do we see ourselves evolving and expanding our band or expanding our repertoire? Not much. There's been talk about this or that here or there, but it seems if you take it too far, you run the risk of jumping the shark, if you know what that means. And it signals the beginning of the end, that you've kind of abandoned what got you successful in the first place. So 90% of what we do is still basically centered around what we were formed on, based on. And when we add things to the show, there are things that just is more of the same thing. We add confetti cannons and CO2 blasts and lighting effects and fancy, and clothes. Our clothes have evolved over the years. We went from dressing like they did in the 80s to dressing like those same bands do now. right? The Firehouses and the Poisons of the world who used to wear leather and silk are now wearing, wearing the buckle jeans and the Affliction shirts. We made a similar evolution, but it's still celebrating the same artists and the same genre. But anyway, now back to the original question, which is Cherry Pie was formed in 1999, and like a lot of people my age, going to high school in the 80s, we love that 80s rock thing. And then what typically happened, or at least what's happened through like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, is whatever's popular one decade goes out of fashion the following decade. And then the following decade after that, it comes back into fashion as retro, nostalgia. Because if you remember, I remember in the 80s, people hated the 70s, but they celebrated the 60s. And then the 90s, they hated the 80s, and they celebrated the 70s, et cetera, et cetera. Well, in the 90s, a lot of us who loved the 80s didn't really like the 90s so much. You had, the grunge stuff and that. And so, but the stuff that we liked from the 80s was not popular at all. I mean, you couldn't, it was hard to build a following playing those songs in the band. So when the end of the decade came, I knew, and when I met these guys, we all kind of knew that the 80s was about to come back. And we were pretty happy about that. We were looking forward to it. So we jumped right on it. 1999, actually, I remember being inspired by seeing another band that was doing some of these songs, playing at the Badger Bowl, and it was so refreshing to hear people playing Rat and Ozzy Osbourne and Poison and stuff. It's like, we got to get in on this. So I joined the band. I mean, I don't want to go into the whole story of who formed it and who joined when, but we all came together within the year 1999 around this idea that we're going to be an 80s cover band, and it was due to become popular again, and we were right. And we came out of in 2000, we adopted the name Cherry Pie, and we went from 0 to 60 really fast. And that's how the band started. And 3 of us are still in the band from the founding members. We haven't had a lot of turnover. We changed drummers and we changed bass players, but our current drummer, Frankie, he's been in the band going on 9 years now, and he's really become the backbone of the band. So it's hard to imagine he actually wasn't an original member. So we've had a lot of consistency there, and I'm sure that helps. But yeah, we are all about the 80s vibe, the Poison, Def Leppard, Bon Jovi. On the heavier end, we'll do Metallica and Skid Row. On the lighter end, we'll do Loverboy and Journey. And I think we've always done it well. We combine finesse with power, I think in a really good way. And we've been doing it for going on 16 years, and and things continue to go well. Knock on wood.
Definitely, I agree. And what I find interesting about it is that stage chemistry that you possess. Not every band that I've seen, or even performers, you put 2 people together on a stage, doesn't mean there's always going to be great symmetry, and it doesn't always mean that they're going to jive very well. So I was very impressed, and people, you should go and see for yourselves how impressive it is. They have a great stage presentation and a great chemistry together, and like I said, that just doesn't always happen, especially for a band that's been together that long.
I think we've gotten very lucky along the way in several regards, and the idea of chemistry. I mean, like I said, we combine power and finesse. We also combine professionalism with party attitude. We kind of walk both sides of the fence of a lot of these things, and that's been key to our success. And we're good at what we do. We look relatively good doing it. We always had good hair. I mean, a lot of things that weren't really by design just kind of fell into line for us. So, they say luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and
right.
But I mean, we worked hard at it. We were very organized, but there was definitely a lot of luck where things we didn't even plan ended up working in our favor. And so, and then when things go well, it's easy to have good chemistry when you're doing well and having fun, and you love the music, and you have a camaraderie, the kind of camaraderie that any musicians have when they come together over certain music that they both love. So
of course.
It's all good.
Now, wonderful. And, of course, Not surprising. He's got a band named after himself, of course, the Josh Becker Band. What is most unique about that, which I also think is very cool, is that your son, of course, obviously plays the drums with you on that particular project. And that's been going on for almost 4 years or so. So tell folks how often you play in your own, obviously, the Josh Becker Band, and what kind of an experience it is in working with your son. Because I imagine that, is it ever tumultuous? I mean, because we as parents want to believe that our kids get along 24/7.
No, not at all. This is not the son that is shy about playing live. That was the other son. This is the other son who has his own rock and roll dreams, and he only started playing with the band this year. He's done just 4 shows with us so far, but he's been the easiest drummer to work with, and I just see him getting better all the time. Now, the bass player who I've had from the beginning was 18 when she joined, and now she's 21, and now my 17-year-old son is the drummer. I'm really surrounding myself with really young people right now. It makes me feel old. But anyway,
yes.
But it's really cool because they do the job right, and the band does what I wanted it to do, doing all these certain types of cover songs, classic rock. Some of it is in the cherry pie genre, but a lot of it isn't. That's one of the reasons people do side projects, is to branch out like that.
Sure.
But so they do the job, but there's also, and I guess it's just similar to the open mic thing. To see these very young musicians develop is part of the fun, and I get very excited about that. And when my own son is involved, it's that much more special. And he's totally easy to work with. He recognizes what he's doing well and what he's not doing well, and we talk about these things, and he respects me as somebody who can teach him something. And I know that's not always the case with your own kids, but in this case, it's working really well. I was going to say, when I started the band 4 years ago, I kind of had this realization that I finally, after years, I finally had a big enough ego to put my own name on a band. And that was...
Listen to that.
Well, and also you have to remember that I was not a singer. It's funny because I was in the Miami Boy Choir as a boy alto when I was like 12 years old. So I was actually a really good singer when I was a kid. But then after puberty, I wasn't really a singer. I sang harmonies that blended with other voices, including Jukebox Heroes, which was one of the best vocal bands ever in this area. But I was not. I was a distant fifth on the 5-man depth chart for vocals in that band. So I wasn't singing leads for years. I was an instrumentalist who accompanied people on guitar and on keyboards, and I sang some harmonies, but I was not a lead singer. And then I started singing leads with some acoustic solo stuff. I went to open mics and got confidence. This is already like 2003, 2004. I was already, in my late 30s before I really started to emerge as a singer. And then when I finally realized that, I sing okay. I mean, I'll never be a Steve Perry or anything like that, but I could add this to my repertoire of things that I can sell as a musician. And then I was doing the solo shows and doing a lot of mellow stuff, and I was like, well, maybe I want to rock it out a bit and be the front man of a real rock band for the first time in my life. And that's where the Josh Becker Band came from.
Nice.
And it is,
very nice.
And it's a bit stripped down. There's no keyboards in it. There's it's a meat and potatoes bar rock fun band, which is not always my personality, but when I'm in that band, it is, So.
Okay, I've gotcha. All right, and then on the other side of the fence, of course, you have your solo acoustic project, and that's, of course, been going on for approximately about 10 years or so. And how often do you get a chance to do that? And if I were to ask you, is it your personal preference to do more solo stuff as compared to being in a more organized, a band-type setting? Which do you prefer? Which do you like more?
Well, the solo thing is really, that's where the diversity is a plus and a minus, because sometimes I'll do a solo show in a bar where it's supposed to have the same energy as the dueling pianos, and I just ham it up and I play all these upbeat rock tunes. And on the extreme opposite side, sometimes I'm played to play, weddings or Mother's Day or Easter brunches where I'm background music and everything I play is mellow, and I love playing that kind of stuff. But so my solo show is very versatile, depending on what people want. And again, diversity is fun for me because I don't want to be playing the same stuff all the time. But
well,
so
of course.
The solo show is not, in my mind, is not particularly well defined. But right now, the Josh Becker Band, we only play like once or twice a month. So at this rate, I look forward so much to each of those shows because they're not as frequent. And if we got to a point where we're playing more often, I'd probably think a little bit different about it. But playing in that three-piece with my son, with the young bass player, is a lot of fun because we don't get to do it often enough. By the way, the bass player, she's 21, and I used to do lights for her dad's band. Back when she was born in 1993, I was doing lights for her dad's band. And I remember seeing her as an infant. It's like, oh, he had a daughter, and here she is, she's a little baby. And so now she's my bass player. And so sometimes her dad comes to the shows, and sometimes she'll hand him the bass, and he'll play bass while she sings, and I'm playing guitar. And it's like this father-son, father-daughter combination going on. And it's pretty cool, very family thing there.
I like to hear that. I like the family kind of stuff. That's absolutely awesome. Definitely. Now, to those that are listening in, just to give you a sense of this, I know in the past that you've done the Dan Jansen Fest. I know you've done Badger Bowl. You've done the Roadhouse in Cedarburg. Obviously, State Fair Park, Summerfest, Rooters, which is now, I believe, no longer in existence. What I had Saloon on Calhoun, obviously, we don't want to forget about that. So if I were to ask you what your dream venue would be, whether it be here in Madison, let's just keep it local per se, one place you haven't played yet that you want to, where do you think that would be in all these different diverse experiences you've had so far?
Oh, gee. I mean, well, there's some places that just have really good stages, like Bub's in Germantown, which is really close to where I live. That has a really nice stage. It feels really good. We've had some good shows there. We've had sometimes, so that's one way of measuring a venue is the physical stage. Another way of measuring it is the type of people that go there. We used to play the Drive-In Saloon in Madison, and that is now closed also, but we had some crazy crowds in there, some real bizarre behavior, and I mean that in a good way. Rooters was great because of the way that people would watch the band from below and above at the balcony, and even from behind where the bar was. Gee, I don't want to leave anybody out here, but those come to mind.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, and the Badger Bowl, we've played more than any other single room, so that's like a home away from home. And their state has improved over the years, and it's a good room with a lot of really, really supportive people. And as far as places I haven't played that would like to, it's hard to think of any.
That's surprising.
I mean, I don't know.
Okay, well.
I don't get to many venues where I've never played. So I guess it doesn't really stick out of my mind of a place where I don't know. Don't know on that one.
Just give it some thought. That's perfectly fine. And I heard through the grapevine or in doing research, is it true that you can actually perform Sinatra?
Oh yeah, when you're doing dueling pianos, you got to play everything. We do Sinatra, we do show tunes, we do rap songs. I've done, there's at least 4 Sinatra songs I've done multiple times, but only one of them that I actually have memorized and actually do as part of my regular solo show. The rest were all read by request.
I gotcha. Okay, got it. Yeah, because it's a dying breed. I mean, that's one of the things that's one of my personal favorites, and I gripe about in town so much, which is I'm like, I can never find anybody, with the exception of a few people, that will do like a Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra. It's just very rare, and so I'm like, I get excited when I see somebody. Yay!
Yep.
I like that. Woot woot.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of musical purists do love that kind of, I've done Dean Martin and, go back to the pre-rock and roll era, which some people wouldn't even know what that is, but...
No, I know what you're talking about. I do. And having an old soul and having an appreciation for that music just isn't something that everybody has anymore. So I guess I'm kind of the freak in the crowd, so to speak, because I like that. But it's absolute great music, so it's good to know. Just to let everybody know on a couple of little things that I found out about you. First of all, how cool is this? Your birthday is on St. Patrick's Day.
Yes,
That's
which is
awesome.
a bit ironic because I've never been a drinker, and St. Patrick's Day is like the ultimate drinking holiday.
Yes, it is. That's why
so
we all get wasted.
I'm like,
oh man,
Irish. That birthday was wasted on me. But yeah, and actually, speaking of my birthday, I found out that there was at least one celebrity I know of who actually was born on the very same day I was, in the same year and the same day.
Really?
Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know that guy. Well, I don't know him, but I've heard of him or whatever. How cool is that? That's awesome. You get to share a birthday with somebody infamous like that. That is absolutely amazing. Yes, so we know that about you. Obviously, of course, as we prefaced, you are certainly a father. You are a husband. You also have siblings. I'm aware of that. Are you? Do they share the same sentiment or sentimentality, or I should say, occupation rather? Are they creative and musical oriented as well?
Well, yeah, but they haven't pursued it professionally as much as I have.
I gotcha.
One brother who's a truck driver, and another one who's a computer analyst. He picked a much more lucrative path for his life, but he's always played in bands on the side for fun, and he's quite good and quite versatile.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And I also found out that both you and I are huge fans of the following 4 bands, which, by the way, are all local. And yes, I can do this on my show because they're all about promotion. Killer Clowns, of course, Scott McHugh's project. Deacon Jones, I don't even know where to start with him because I don't even want to go there, how wonderful they are. Bellevue Suites, of course, and Chase and Mason, which is kind of obvious. I can also tell you, folks, and this is a big one that I found out and I was all excited about. Josh Becker plays Scrabble. Who would have thought that? I didn't know it, but guess what he does? He plays Scrabble with his mom.
Yeah.
I saw this little notation and I thought to myself, how really cool is that? I haven't played Scrabble in a God's age. I'm like, that's a really neat, it's just a fun little fact sort of good thing, like the jazz. So wonderful. So
well,
that's on the personal
there's a few things. Yeah, there's a few things about everybody that I categorize as it's so uncool that it is cool, such as playing Scrabble, such as listening to the Carpenters or Frank Sinatra, or everybody's got those dirty little secrets that are actually pretty awesome.
Oh, you betcha. Absolutely, without a doubt. Now, I didn't want to forget to mention to folks 2 different things. Just to let everybody know, this coming weekend, the 5th and the 6th, both are Cherry Pie gigs, of course. The 5th being at the Wisco Fest at 7 o'clock, and that's Cherry Pie. And then on the 6th, you're, of course, at the Hometown Days, and that's at 8:30. And then thereafter, on the 10th, you have the open mic, of course, at the Sheer Lounge, and that's at 7 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And then on the 11th, you're at Christie's Landing at 7 o'clock, and that's, again, an open mic scenario as far as that goes.
Right.
I do also want to go down and do the run-through, so just listen to this list for me and make sure I didn't forget anything. Josh, of course, last name being Becker, has a personal Facebook page. He also has a page for the Cherry Pie Band. His website is joshbecker.com. He has a Twitter handle, but I saw it's at joshbecker67. Now, do you utilize that frequently on Twitter so people will tweet you?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
We're trying to work Twitter, the Cherry Pie Twitter account, keep that active. But my personal one, I never really did much with it. But
okay, I gotcha. I wasn't sure, so that's why I'm like, well, I'm not sure, but as far as that goes, and then of course cherrypie.org. Music can be found on YouTube, and of course I have wondersoundmusic.com, which is where your information is also. Is there any other place that people can go to find you on social media?
Oh, isn't that enough?
You'd be surprised.
No, the thing is, it's the main thing is that if you know my name, Josh Becker, that joshbecker.com is where you can go and then find everything else from there. So that's the.
You betcha.
As long as you have one way to reach somebody, then everything else opens up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Absolutely. So in closing, I just wanted to say a couple of quick things for you and let you get back to your Friday, and then I'll get back to my Friday. But I wanted to say this much. First and foremost, thank you so much for clearing up your schedule to give me an hour's worth of your time. I appreciate that because I know you have many, many things on your plate. So for one, thank you for coming onto my show. For another, I have seen you in different facets. I haven't seen, I think the only one I haven't seen is the Josh Becker Band. I've obviously seen the big stage presence and the solo, and of course, obviously, I was at Dueling Pianos before with Marcel. And so this is what I found out about you. My simple observations about you you are a very level-headed, very professional, very astute musician. You carry a great respect for what you do for a living, and you carry a great respect for those around you, meaning like musicians, etc. You're not afraid to try new and different challenges as it relates to music, which I find very admirable. And from what I can see, you have an absolutely beautiful family, which I believe might be at the core and foundation of the person that you are, even more commendable, I think. And I'm looking forward to spending more time listening to you play music, and hopefully with a bigger band setting. I haven't been out to see Cherry Pie for a while, but I do hope that with Anything Like It All, last time Marcel came on this show, he got 3 gigs after. So hopefully with Anything Like It All, if I've done my job, you'll walk away from this experience being happy and pleased and hopefully gainfully employed. We hope. We hope.
Well,
that
I got to say, that was one of the nicest things anybody said about me to me, maybe ever. I don't know. Really
that's
appreciate
so sweet.
it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's what happens on the show. We're all about being very honest and building people up, and I have a huge appreciation for my local musicians. I love them more than I can even tell you. So really, honestly, it was my pleasure to be able to host you, and certainly, without a doubt at all, just keep it in mind. You can come back at any time you like, and I will certainly be back next week to watch you guys play.
Excellent.
Oh, crap. You know what we forgot to do? We got to do the last thing, which is play the song. Give me an intro for the On the Run song. So we'll play that before we'll play that, and then we'll actually wrap it up. Because I almost forgot that. So, good thing I checked. Okay, so tell me about On the Run.
That was one of a few songs I wrote back in the 90s and recorded. And on this one, this was back when I was writing more ambitious rock music that I did not feel that I was able to sing. So the singer on it is actually Ronnie Platt, who's now the lead singer of Kansas. So that's very exciting. But
yes, it is.
Yeah, like I said, I have no illusions of. It's like my career is based on playing other people's music. So that's that. To that aside, it's like yes, I have written music, I have recorded music. This is one of those songs that I recorded about 20 years ago. And I listen to this stuff once in a while, and I sit back and go, hey, that's not bad. So you asked for a song, and I sang this one because I like it.
There you go. All right, well, I'll let you rest for 3 minutes, and we'll play the music, and we'll see what everybody else thinks. So this is On the Run. Wow. I can see why you like it. I can
Cool.
see why you like it. But that's because I'm a total chick and who's totally into music, and I'm just like, oh, my God, I'd be hard-pressed to not like anything except for that rap crap. And I hate to be rude because I do interview people who do that for a living, but I just never got the whole concept of it. It's like talk. It's just, rap is basically talk to me, and I'm just like, I have a hard time relating to it. And that and the swearing constantly,
Well, I have to admit, I've never been a fan of rap, and I'm still not really a fan of it, but I did learn to appreciate it a little more when I had to do some. Because, Baby Got Back is a staple at dueling piano shows and some of the other songs. And I'm like, it's not as easy as it seems. It's still not, my idea of, my favorite kind of music, but I did learn to appreciate it a little bit more when I had to do it.
Oh, of course, obviously. That kind of goes without saying, but I know what you mean. I mean, we all kind of acclimate to certain things. It just doesn't have to be our favorites. I get it completely. Definitely. Right. All right. Wonderful. Now we got the song in. Now we covered everything. Absolutely awesome. Wonderful. Please be sure to send your best to my wife, of course, and your family. And as I said, I'll be in touch next week, or actually my presence will be there because I will be attending your gig, of course. And I do hope that I've served you well and you had a good time.
Oh, it's been great. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, not a problem at all whatsoever. Do know that the door's open. If you want to come back again sometime, you're more than welcome.
All right. Thank you. Look forward
all
to
right,
seeing
my dear.
you
Have
out
a nice
and about.
weekend. Thank you. You
too.
shall. I will do that, definitely. All right. Take care, dear. I'll see you soon.
You too. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, folks. That was the infamous Josh Becker. I just wanted to reiterate one more time. JoshBecker.com is the website. Music can be found on YouTube. CherryPie.org is the website, of course, for Cherry Pie. He has a personal Facebook page, as well as there is a Facebook page for Cherry Pie. Also, the Twitter handle, as he had mentioned, we can use the @CherryPie one, but I don't believe that he was indicating that his personal one was being used that much. So those are all the various ways. Once again, like I said one more time, thanks so much, Josh Becker, for being patient and cooperative and being able to schedule some time to spend with me today. I totally appreciate it. It's a great mind distraction. Just a reminder to all for next week in terms of radio. Tuesday at 12 o'clock Central Standard Time, we have the actor Donnie Bentley coming on the show. On Wednesday morning, another local musician, Ring Finish, will be gracing our show. And then on Thursday, we actually have a Las Vegas performer, Nicholas Brooks, is coming on the show at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. That's it for me, folks, this weekend. It's been a very, 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 very intense week. So feel free to text, to message, and try to get a hold of me that way because I will be off the grid all weekend. Have fun. We'll talk to you next week.
What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. By singing dog. By goal.
I pronounce you.
By wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. By singing dog. By goal.
I pronounce you.
By wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.